In this first step, we're going to use 4 washers and 2 nuts and 2 bolts and this plastic piece here that came from this kit. And you might end up with 2 of these. One of them is a spare. Alright, let's get started. We're going to use our tape, and we're going to encase a washer in this piece of paper, or tape rather, and we're going to, you can squeeze that tightly. So do that for all 4. Now we're going to cut the centers, or cut the excess off around here. Now using something sharp like a pencil, you're going to poke out the center. Now slide one onto your bolt like that. Slide a second on, like that, and then start the nut. Now with this piece, we're going to put this in here. Using a screwdriver, we're going to tighten this up a little bit, snug. If the nut turns in there, you might need a pair of pliers. We don't want to get this too tight or else it'll break the plastic, but snug. Bring the washers like this. Now we're going to do it again. Snug this up. Spread your washers apart. Now, get another piece of tape, I don't know, 2 inches long, and I'm actually going to cut this in half. Save one piece for in a moment. Now spread the washers apart, and now we're going to cover all of the threads in that are showing, all the silver metal of the bolt. Make sure there is no, check in these areas right here that you're not able to see any silver. It's really important that you do this right. We'll discuss why in a moment. If you need to use some extra tape to cover any of these areas here or here, go ahead and do so, but spread your washers apart. You can see here's an example of where threads are showing. We don't want that. We don't want to have anything showing right here. The tape is acting as an insulator. Do a nice job, because if you don't do this part right, your motor won't work. Okay. Get to this stage right here and then move on to the next stage. Now that we have this part complete, we're going to start working on the wire. Now your wire may have come on a spool and you might have had to measure it out. This is going to be approximately 40 feet in length, and you'll notice that this is very thin and it will easily kink, so you're going to need to be very careful with this wire. The first step with this is to unwrap it. Unwrap the tape if you have yours like this, and the tape may stick on it, so you're going to need to be really careful because this wire is delicate. Now, off camera, I'm going to find the center of this wire, and to do so, what I suggest doing is finding this middle carefully and pulling it apart, trying not to kink it. Don't kink it, bend it sharply, and what you're going to have to do is slowly unwind this. And if one side starts to look like it's going to get tangled, start on the other side. Now I'm going to do the rest off camera, but I wanted to do a little bit here just to show you how tricky it can be to start unwinding this, unwinding your wire from this big spool. Just do a very careful job. I can set this aside for now, and once I get this undone, and I want to do this very carefully so we don't get coils in it, I can work from either end. If you do this neatly, what will happen is your job will be a little easier as you move forward. So do a really good job of being careful. Also be aware of what's behind you or underneath you. If someone is near you that might step on your wire, or the wire gets kinked in your chair or something else, that won't be good. I'm trying to keep this nice and straight. I'll be back in a moment. Okay, I'm back, and I am still working on this wire, and I've found the midpoint of my my long copper wire, and I'm going to make sure that I mark it by just folding this tape over, because I don't want to lose that spot. Now that I have the middle, I'm going to take one of the ends and working my way to the end. Again, do not kink it. Do not kink the wire. and we're going to be using this piece, but I'm going to get to the end here. Now, you'll see I have one end of the wire here, and there are two tiny holes that are in this piece of black plastic. One tiny hole here and one tiny hole here. I'm going to put this wire, doesn't matter which side I go through, but I'm going to stick this wire through, and I'm going to pull out about 6 inches of wire. So let's just call it the length of this pencil, this mechanical pencil. And then I'm going to hold that short piece, the 6 inches, and now I'm going to reach around and I'm going to begin to wind this copper wire neatly around this bolt. And again, we don't want to kink it, and neatness counts. So I'm going to just keep going around. You can sort of see how this is going. Okay, I have reached the midpoint of the copper wire, and you'll notice I've been wrapping always in the same direction. You can see what it looks like. Now I'm going to carefully take off this midpoint wire. I hope I can do this. And I do not want to break my wire. I probably should have used a different type of tape. This tape is a little too strong. Now this is an important time to pay attention. I am going to continue wrapping, but I'm going to go over to the other side of, see if I can show you a little better. So here was our original 6-inch piece. I'm going to continue now. I'm going to wrap the other piece right here. I'm just going to cross over and begin going in the same direction. You'll notice that I was winding this way, and I'm going to continue to wind this way. I'm going to continue winding in the same direction as I did on this spindle here. I just finished coiling this second piece here, and you don't want to let go of it because it might uncoil. And I'm going to take about 6 inches here, and I'm going to pass this new 6 inches through the other hole, or I'm going to, let's see, I'll wrap it around this way. And you're going to have these, I've already used this hole, now I'm going to use this one. Passing it through the little tiny hole. See if we can get a close-up of what this looks like. The next step with our process here is you're going to need the axle and this and two of these are called commutator supports. This is you can call this a rotor or a commutator, what we've just built here. Essentially what it's going to become is an electromagnet, but for right now we're going to be placing this socket, or axle rather, through the center of this right here, and you're going to notice that it is a very tight fit. And when we go through with this axle, we got to be very careful not to break the wire that is here, that's going across. So make sure that when you go through that you're gentle with this device and not going to break any wires. To help put the axle through, I'm going to use a pair of vice grips. You might have access to pliers. These vice grips I think will work perfectly. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start on one side and I'm going to turn back and forth. Whoa, that went through really quick. Okay, glad I didn't break my wire there. That would have been sort of catastrophic. Okay, now what I'm going to do is more or less slide this to the center. There we go. Oh, not quite. It's good that it's a tight fit. That's what we want. So this is what it looks like right now. And then what we're going to do is cut this little piece of clear tubing in half. And we're going to need to start paying attention to which side these wires come out of. This, I'm going to put this clear plastic piece, this tubing, on the side opposite the wires. And again, it's going to be a snug fit. Slide that down to about halfway. It'll need to be adjusted later. And then the next thing I'm going to do is put a commutator support, one of these pieces. Again, I got that from this kit. Mine actually had an extra. I had 3. I'm only going to need 2. So let's see here. On the side where the wires are coming out, both of these wires, I am going to slide this in. Now, because it's such a tight fit, I'm going to have to use my vice grips again, and I'm going to turn this back and forth. I want to be careful not to stab myself. I might even be able to push down. Wow. I might need my other pliers here. There we go. Again, I want to make sure I don't damage these wires here. I want to emphasize that we're working on the same side of the rotor, the commutator, that has the 2 wires coming out. Okay, now I'm going to slide this piece of clear tubing through, being careful not to stab myself. To about there. Now I'm going to do this again. There we go. That's what we have right now. Now, the distance from here to here for right now will be about 1/2 inch. And this is, could be a little closer. Too close. Actually, I would think I was right on initially. I was. Okay, so again, the distance from here to here is about 1/2 inch right now. I'm going to stop right. Now that we have the commutator support rings on here and these clear spacers, I'm going to cut both of these to about 3 inches in length. It's not super critical that they are exactly 3 inches, but I can use regular scissors because this wire is so thin. That's one. And then, again, it's not super critical that it's exactly the right length. Won't need the scrap anymore. Now, very carefully, we're going to use this sandpaper to remove the coating on the wire. It's actually insulation. And so what I'll do is I'll just take this fine sandpaper, fold it over, and I'll put it on here like this, sort of pinching it. And you'll notice that the wire changes color. And I want to get all that sort of copper color off of there. That copper color is actually an insulation. And keep rotating it until I can see that it's, and I got to be very careful about this because I don't want to break my wire, but I have to get the insulation off. So I'll just keep rotating this until I get every piece of that insulation off. Okay, I just broke my wire. So I just broke one of the wires here, and that's not a good thing. So what I'm going to try to do is feed some wire that I just from the other end, and this might be hard. Yeah, I don't think it's going to go. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to solder this wire onto here, and simply wrapping it is not, I think, going to do the trick, although I might try. So now I've got to really be careful, and I was just pulling too strongly on that. I'm going to reattach the wire I just ripped off. There's your lesson in how not to treat that wire. So now I gotta find an end here that I can work with. I just added work to myself, for myself rather. Okay, now hopefully I have created or removed enough of this to allow me to twist these wires together. I'm actually going to try not to solder it. I might have also created other problems for myself in this process, but we will see. If this happens to you, you'll just have to find either unwrap what you had or try to do a fix like what I just did. Okay, now unfortunately I'm still not done. I got to go back now to carefully removing gently, ever so gently, removing this outer layer here, changing the color. Okay, I think I did it. That's one. Now I got to remove this enamel, this insulation from the other wire. I'm going to try to do this one a little more carefully. Okay, I think I did it. Now, you're going to see that there are holes in these rings here. Holes on either side. And what I have to do now is feed this wire through the hole without breaking it or kinking it. The kinking will actually increase the likelihood of my breaking the wire. That was through one hole. Here's another one. And I can turn these so that they line up with the hole down. So I want a straight line for my wire. Now I'm going to try to go over here without breaking my wire. Run this one through the holes. That was one. And two. Now what I'm going to do is slide these rings down to about within 1/4 of an inch of a space right here. We want 1/4 of an inch here. So I'm going to measure this. Could be a little closer. Okay. Now I'm going to slide this ring down. And then this one. For this next step, we're going to get these supports here. There's 4 of them. And one of them, I want you to set aside. It is the one that has 2 holes in it. That's going to be important for us. So I'm going to set that aside. And we're also going to have 2 screws here and 2 magnets. Now, when you put these magnets together, I want you to set the magnets together so that they attract each other. And then I'm going to take one of these and I'm going to set that magnet aside. And I'm going to take a screw and I'm going to put this in here. I'm going to take my screwdriver Ouch. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to attach the second magnet to one of these posts, but we've got to do it in the way that the magnets want to attract. So this one wants to go like that, so this is important for the motor to work. I'm going to screw this on like that. Let me show you how I did that again. I put this magnet on here. If that is the way, one way it'll attract and one way it repels. So I'm going to put that there so I know for sure. And now I'm going to put this other post here and simply peel the magnet off. Now I'm going to screw this in. You're going to need to be careful because the screw comes out the other side. Sharp too. So now these two attract each other. Now that I have my magnets attached and I'm sure that they are attracting each other, I'm going to attach them to the base, and the magnets are going to go on the far ends of the base. You can just slide these in like that. Should just snap right in. Again, being careful about these screws that are protruding here. And then we're going to mount the motor, or the rotor here. Commutator. The next piece is to attach the motor shaft to the supports. Now you're going to notice that again we have two of these supports left. This one has holes in it. The one with holes in it is going to go on the same side as where the wires come out. I'll slide this on and slide this on here, and I'm going to push this in. Now you're going to notice I have a problem here, and I'm going to have to solve it. Here's the problem, is that my motor is not able to go far enough, the commutator is not able to go far enough this way to be lined up with my magnets, and you can see that this is not centered with this, and the reason that is because this clear plastic sleeve is keeping my shaft from going over far enough. Now I can move it a little bit by sliding this, and I might be able to slide it a little bit more, but probably it's not going to let me do it as much as I need to. That might impact the success of my motor, but I'm going to let it see. I'm going to see what happens for now. I'm going to slide this other piece of clear plastic tubing right here over, but I don't want it to keep it from spinning or inhibit the spinning, so I'm going to push it just so that there's enough. So we're going to see what happens. But again, these wires, this is going to be coming on the same side as these little holes here. Now let's go to the next step. The next step is we're going to be using this section of wire. In our case it happens to be blue, and I am going to fold it over so that I can find the halfway point. It's not super critical that it's exactly right. I'm going to take my wire cutters and cut that. Now I've got two pieces, and now I'm going to take my wire strippers and I'm going to remove the insulation from this. Should be fairly easy to remove. Might have to do it in sections. My wire is being difficult. Sometimes you can even remove the remaining pieces with just your fingernail. So this wire is done. Now I got to remove the insulation from this one. See if I can just remove this with my fingernail. Yep, I was able to do it. Okay. Okay, here's where we are. Now we have our two wires here, and we're going to be running those up through the base here where there's two holes, and then we of course have two holes here. Now if you don't have the holes here lined up with the holes down here, you're going to have to remove your axle supports and rotate them. So now we have these long wires here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to bend them back this way, and I'm going to cut right along here, just removing the excess, but still that what I'm doing is I can now bend these over a little bit so that the wires don't come out. And see if I can show you a close-up of that. Oops, sorry. I have a feeling I may need to cut this piece of clear pipe, vinyl pipe, but I'm going to wait and see. It may not be allowing me to, may not allow my motor to work properly. I may need to shorten it, and that's because I don't think that this is lined up with here, the magnets, well enough, and that's because if I shorten this a little bit, I'll be able to push my motor over a little more. But let's see what happens. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of my wires, I'm going to flip this upside down, and I'm going to go through one of these holes here. This might take you a little bit of practice to get right. And I want this wire to be able to come close to this shaft right here. And you'll see that when we turn this, it's going to be so close that when the wire from the commutator brushes up against this wire, they're going to be connecting. Okay, so now you can sort of see how I've accomplished that. This wire down here, we're going to be attaching to a 9-volt battery. Alright, now I'm going to do the same underneath here. Again, need to feed this through so you have enough wire sticking out the top. Okay. Essentially what I have now is this wire coming out on both sides of this shaft, the motor shaft. I can bend this. These are the wires right here that I'm going to be attaching to my 9-volt battery, and I'm almost done. Okay, I'm going to add power to the motor by just connecting my alligator clips to these two. I don't need to these two wires here. I don't need to pay attention to polarity at this point, mostly because what's going to happen is that'll just change the direction of the motor. So to test it, what I want to do is turn this, give it a little start,